Welcome to our second behind-the-scenes episode of Focus Fire Chat. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have Justin Sane 0516.
Hello.
And in the seat of honor for this episode, we're joined by our good friend Mel, known to many as WindoftheStars. Mel, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty well.
Wonderful.
As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Wednesday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. The Behind the Scenes series that we've started is a way for us to step out of the world of game lore and talk about other aspects of the community that we're so proud to be a part of. This episode is going to be dedicated to cosplay. We actually asked our chat at the beginning of, when we decided that we were going to do cosplay, we asked our chat to kind of start compiling a list of questions that they'd always wondered about and had never had a chance to either ask a cosplayer or, whenever most people interact with cosplayers, it's at a convention or it's, in a public interaction style. And so they don't really have time to really get down and, ask deep questions. It's more of, hey, that's a really cool, costume or, can I take your picture, or that level. So we, in the similar vein of what we did with the voice acting with Morla, we kind of are going to approach that with these behind the scenes stuff with everything that we kind of choose on doing. So, and Mel volunteered and was amiable to being put in the hot seat for everything. So we really appreciate that. And I guess we'll just dive right in. The first question everyone always wants to know is, how did you first get into cosplay or prop making?
Oh boy. You want the long version or the short version?
Yeah, I like the long version.
All right. Well, like most people, most of us kind of started watching like anime or something like that when we were younger. I started watching anime when I was like 12, 13 or so. And it was one of those times where it kind of came in at a part of, my life where it was not so great. So I really latched onto it and I got into watching Sailor Moon and then like Dragon Ball and like Tenchi Muyo and like Outlaw Star and stuff like that a little bit later. And I always liked it. And I had dressed up as Sailor Moon for Halloween multiple years when I was like, pretty young. So when I got older and I got to college, I went to university, I kind of wanted to like learn more about anime, get exposed to it more. And I thought that would be a good place to do that because I live in a small town. So there's not a lot of options to like go find out information about it, and so like, yeah, and the internet was kind of in its infancy during this time. So it wasn't like I could just get on Google or like I can just, load up Crunchyroll or something like that or hop on Netflix. Like those things didn't exist back then. Friends would basically make copies of VHSs and pass them off to each other, or they would get the actual Japanese version of the show, and then like, okay, here you go, like here you can watch it, and there's fan subs on it. So that means like some random fan decided to put their own translation on these VHS copies. So it was very archaic in the way that we used to do it. And so when I got to college, that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to get into it, because I knew there was this whole entire world of anime that I had no idea about. So the club that I joined was like the Anime and Manga Society at UNR, University of Nevada, Reno. And every year they held an event where they encouraged the members of the club to dress up or cosplay. And at the time, I had no clue what that was. I'm like, what? You do what? So like Halloween? And then no, like cosplay. And so I went home and I looked it up on the internet and I found out like this is a whole entire subculture of people who actually dress up as their favorite characters from, at the time it was mainly anime. It was still very much, there was still a very much clear divide between like, oh, there was anime cosplayers, there was video game cosplayers, there's the Trekkie people, and then there's like the Comic-Con people. Like now it's much more melded together. Like you'll see a bunch of stuff for any convention, you know, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, at the time, to me, it felt very segregated. So, but I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I want to dress up and was my favorite character. And I had no idea how to sew. I've always been kind of an artistic person to begin with. So I would like paint and draw or, you know, whatever at the time I was into. But my mom knew how to sew because for years, back to the Sailor Moon costumes when I was a little girl, she used to make Halloween costumes for me, and I would enter into competitions with my Halloween costumes and stuff like that. So I knew she knew how to sew. And so I picked out a character, and this was at the time when like Soul Calibur 2 was like the game to play. Like everyone was playing Soul Calibur 2, and I had just gotten a PlayStation, and I was in love with that game. I loved it. And my hair was short and blonde at the time because wigs didn't exist really back then. Like you didn't know to buy a wig. And if you did find a wig, like you're going to be paying an absorbent amount of money for something that was really, really crappy. And so like, oh, well, I don't have to do anything. My hair looks like her, you know, like, you know, my eyes are blue. So I look like Cassandra from Soul Calibur. And so, and I love the game and everything like that. So I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I want to do this. Like, can you help me? And she's like, I guess, you know, like you're like, what do you say to your like 18-year-old daughter who likes video games and anime, and it comes to like, hey Mom, can you help me make this costume like for this like totally like geeky anime nerd party we have in October? Like, can you help me do that? Like, that's can you just imagine that? Like, you know, like 10, 12 years ago, you know, back in the early 2000s. So bless my mom, she was like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. And so she helped me make most of the dress, and like I made the other bits. Like I took a pizza pan and I just painted it with acrylic paints and threw some clay on it, and that was my shield. Since it was around Halloween, they had all those Halloween stores out, so I went and got like a little sword that looked something like hers, you know. I got like secondhand boots from some like Goodwill store that were kind of white in color like hers. The armor on her arm, I just took craft foam and painted it. Like I didn't even have paint at the time. I just used like shoe polish because that's all I had. So I used shoe polish, and like I had like some silver paint or something left over. And I remember sitting down like for her collar sash thing. I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of like drew out what I thought the shape would be and just kind of just YOLO'd it. and it was when you look at it now, it's bad. It's really bad. But at the time I had so much fun. So I made this. My mom helped me. She did a lot of the sewing because obviously I didn't know how to sew. And I went to the event that the Anime Manga Club had on, and I had so much fun. And there were other people dressed up, and you know, people who were taking pictures, and we were watching anime and playing games, and they had like Walden Books. This is how archaic this is. Walden Books was the sponsor, so they came and had a table set up, and they had a bunch of manga there and like some like figures and like other anime merchandise. And then the club would contact at the time, it was like ADV and a bunch of other anime companies that are no longer around, and they would send us like freebie stuff, you know, like bookmarks or DVD, like preview DVDs or one episode DVDs, and then so people would get those, and it was great. I had so much fun. And when you look back at now, it looks entirely ghetto, like the whole entire experience. Like when you compare it to something like all the conventions you see now, like you just like, wow, you had fun doing that. But yeah, at the time, like when that was your first experience and you never had anything like that, and you never knew there was a community of people in your area that like that stuff and like the same geeky things you have, it was so cool to know that was there and that exists. And then afterwards, I went back online to try to like research more about cosplay and stuff. And that's when I found about like cosplay.com and stuff. And I found out there's these magical things called conventions. And I was like, whoa, you mean there's like 3-day events where people go and they just like dress up and play video games and watch anime and like what? My mind was blown. My mind was blown. So I found the closest convention to me at the time, which was in San Francisco. It was WonderCon 2000 something. I don't know, 2006 maybe? I don't know, somewhere around there. And I decided I want to go to it. But I couldn't go, and so I waited a couple years. So I made my first costume in 2004, which was at Cassandra, and I didn't go to the convention until 2006. So during that time, I kind of just like started like making stuff and just kind of started getting involved like in the online community and stuff, because I was in college. I was 18, 19 years old. I didn't have a lot of money, so it was like I couldn't really justify being able to go to like San Francisco, which is 4 hours away from where I live, to go to a convention, go stay in a hotel. Like, you know, being as an only child, and my parents were like kind of sheltered me a lot. So like to me, like that was just holy crap, I can't do that. Like, how do you even do that? You know, like these world, like now I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll fly to Dubai. It doesn't matter. You know, by myself, I don't care. But like at the time, you know, it's just kind of like this mind blowing, like new experience, so much going on. And so I saved and I kind of got more familiar with like making costumes and stuff. I made a couple more costumes in those 2 years. I made like a Sailor Moon costume. I started to learn how to sew. And I would just go do photo shoots and stuff. Like I would, my boyfriend at the time, like, hey, we bought like this really cheapy digital camera that had like, I don't know, like 5 megapixel camera or something like that. It was awful. And we went out to the park and would do photos and stuff like that. And I would post them online on cosplay.com or DeviantArt or LiveJournal or something like that, or MySpace, and started talking to people and whatnot online, just very vaguely. Because I was also into like Halo 1 online gaming era too. So I would talk to a bunch of people from playing Halo and stuff. And eventually I went to that WonderCon that I had first found out about. And that was in 2006. And then it just snowballed. Then I actually met people face to face that do cosplay on a regular basis, not just like once or twice a year. People who are like, oh yeah, I go to like 4 or 5 conventions a year because they live in San Francisco, you know? So, and we exchanged information. And since I was already familiar with like cosplay.com and LiveJournal, like, oh, okay, I'll add you on those, you know? And so I started making real life friends that were cosplayers and had the same interest I had. And then they're like, hey, do you want to cosplay this? I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I want to cosplay that. And so it just snowballed. And we, in the community, we call, I don't know if it's a whole community wide, but within the West Coast, we call it cosplay bunnies. So, you know, like how like one bunny meets another bunny and then they like will make a bunch of more bunnies, which causes more bunnies. So that's same thing happens with kind of cosplayers, and when they get together and like, hey, you want to make that? Oh man, yeah, let's make that. Oh man, we want to make that. Yeah, let's make that. That sounds like so much fun. So like that started happening. It just snowballed, and then before I know it, like I started planning more costumes. I started planning to go to more conventions, and then here we are, 2012. Where we are, 2016. So you know, so it's you know, I'm 31 now, so I mean, I started when I was 18. That's quite a bit of time to be cosplaying. So, but yeah, so that's the long version of how I got into cosplay.
No, that's kind of, I think that kind of leads into, you know, the next usual question is, you know, if you could tell anyone new to cosplay, you know, if you could talk to every single new cosplayer, you know, what would you tell them? You know, have you taught anybody? Like, have you mentored anybody? And or if you haven't, what would your advice be to anybody who's, you know, really interested in getting into the cosplay?
Oh yeah, at this stage, I've mentored a lot of people. I'm actually a part of Anime Expo, which is the largest anime convention in the United States. I'm part of their program called the Cosplay Senpai program. And a senpai, I don't know how much you guys are familiar with like anime, but a senpai is someone, it's literally translates to upperclassman. And the philosophy behind it is like, okay, here's this person who is seasoned, who has, you know, that knows what they're talking about, and they're here to teach their kohai, which is their underclassmen, and kind of guide them and help them and you know, help them flourish. So I've been a part of that program. since the inception in 2013, 12, I don't know, somewhere around that. I've been doing it for three years now. Dates really start to muddle together when you've been going for so long, you've going for 12 years, 11 years, something like that. So I do that. I've helped a lot of friends here in town with their stuff. Sarah, who was going to be on here tonight, but she unfortunately was sick today. I've helped her a lot. She comes over and we just have like week-long crafting sessions where I teach her how to do stuff, or we're working on a project where we're both doing the same costume together, like we did the Makotes from Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, so she came over and I would teach her like, okay, this is how you do this and this is how you do this. So, and I do a lot of tutorials online and videos and just a lot. I really like teaching people how to become better crafters cosplay involves so many different types of skills that what I learned, I like to pass on what I know to people and like help them grow and make cool stuff. I just want people to make cool stuff. So, that's something that I really strive to do, because to me the community is really, really important, and helping people learn new techniques and stuff like that. Because when I see people who have a really cool costume, I just want to go up to them like, oh my god, how you doing? And like sometimes I'm really bad and I don't even make eye contact with them because I'm just staring at their costume. And I'm like, and I just like, can I touch your costume? And they go, yes. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm just like looking at the seams and like seeing how they do things. Like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. And I'm like, oh, by the way,
I'm up here.
I know, right? So like we joke like that's a cosplayer's handshake. Like we don't actually ever really shake your hand. We're just like, oh, okay, yeah, hi, looking at your costume in your hand.
Can I touch your wings?
Yeah, right. Oh, what are these made out of? You do the little soft touch on the wings, and then another cosplayer, because a lot of times if you make your own stuff, you want people to say, how'd you make this? Because then you just like, oh, let me tell you, you get really excited that someone asked you, how'd you go about this? Because you get to share your story about this journey of making these crazy 9-foot, wingspan wings out of like your 500 square foot apartment. Like those are always great stories. So, but for someone who wants to get into cosplay, I always tell them like, don't fret like that, like, oh, I need to make my costume, or, like people, it doesn't matter how you got your costume, whether you made it, you bought it, got it secondhand. I don't care. And most of the people in the community do not care either. As long as you go out and have fun, put that costume on, feel proud in it, feel like that really, badass character that you've always wanted to be, like go out and be that guardian from Destiny, and walk around and have people just, tip their hats to you and go, guardian, like it's just stuff like that. It just makes you go, wow, it's so cool. And it doesn't matter what your costume looks like, just getting that experience and getting that interaction. And then you start making new friends, and then they start feeding into it, and you'll just start meeting people and like growing your own personal network of people that you're like, wow, I wish I met you like 10 years ago type of people. So a lot of people these days, especially now that cosplay is becoming more quote unquote industry, they're just like, oh, I want to go make money, which is all fine and good. Everyone wants to make money. I understand it, especially doing something that is something that you like. But I think number one thing is go and make sure you smell the roses while you're cosplaying. Enjoy it, like have fun. As long as you're having fun, then you're cosplaying. And and people say there's no right or wrong way to cosplay, and they're totally right, as long as you're having fun. So, but like if they do want to work towards becoming better crafters of costumes and stuff like that, there's so many resources and stuff out there, which I'm sure we're going to cover at some point.
Yeah, actually that's kind of that's actually the next question was there's a couple questions talking about like builds and methods, but the first one is, did you personally have any formal training that helped you, like sewing, electrical, woodcraft, the ceramics, anything like that? And
at first, oh, sorry.
No. And I was just going to say, and if you did or if you didn't, how necessary, do you think that is? Is this something you can just pick up, or is this something that you probably should get formal training for?
At first, no. I had no training. I mean, I knew how to paint and draw, but I mean, like I said, I've been doing like crafty things, art type of things since I was little. So I don't know if that automatically gives me kind of an advantage because I've already been doing that kind of stuff. But I think it personally, I it doesn't matter as long as you have the critical thinking skills of thinking outside the box. You can create costumes. Like to me, I feel like that is the most necessary skill is thinking outside the box. Not necessarily how well you can draw a straight line,
right?
Or how well you can thread a machine.
Well, it kind of sounds like a programmer. Like you have to. I mean, as long as you're open to learning from what your past mistakes or your past experiences, and concatenating that experience with new experiences.
Exactly. And that's why I tell a lot of people all the time, I'm like, they could get frustrated and like, oh, I try to make that and I failed at it. I'm like, technically you never fail when you make costumes because even if you tried something and it didn't work out how you planned to, now you know for future costumes, okay, that technique, that method does not work. I know not to try that this time, so I'm going to try something else. So you'll eventually get to a point where on certain things that you do all the time, this works, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And you kind of already have a game plan going into it. Like you don't have to spend so much time figuring something out. Like when you're first starting to cosplay, it's pretty difficult because you have a really high learning curve because everything you're doing it for the first time. Right. And so you're trying to learn how to do like what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But then after a while, after you've sewn a couple things, you've worked with, foam or thermoplastics or whatever it may be, then you kind of get familiar with it. And then you start developing your own methods that work for you. So, yeah, I didn't really have any formal training. I didn't get any quote unquote formal training, I guess you can say. I never took any classes or anything, if that's kind of what they're wondering. Eventually, after, God, I don't remember how many years it had been, maybe like 6-7 years after I started cosplaying, I applied for a job as a seamstress. And I worked as a tailor for quite a few years. And during that time, she actually taught me how to do things quicker, how to do things more proficient, and also just the fact that I was sewing every day for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I got a lot faster at sewing. So, and just taking things apart and putting them back together, you learn a lot. So that was kind of the only formal training I've ever had was just working under a seamstress, the tailoring. She didn't even make costumes. I mean, she did make some stuff from scratch, but most of the stuff that we did at the shop was all alterations. And I mostly worked on like menswear and like some ladies wear and stuff like that and formal wear. So it wasn't like I took a class on how to sew for costumes or how to think outside the box or how to alter patterns or anything like that. So like I just kind of learned what she has learned, and she had no formal training either throughout her life. She just was always good at sewing, and she just learned from other people, that did alterations. So it was never like any formal stuff aside from just working at an alterations place for quite a few years. So
yeah, and that's kind of I kind of feel like that would be an answer to that question, not just for cosplay, but for, Justin, you could probably back me up on this one, but I think that's kind of any hobby or even job, really. It sounds like as long as you have that drive to just constantly learn from your quote failures, even though they're not, like you said, they're not failures, they're just not pure success. Like it's always a learning experience. I think that's kind of a really good, I don't know. I think whenever I'm teaching people how to do like report writing and, database maintenance and stuff like that, that's exactly what I tell them too. It's like, you're going to mess up. Just get ready for that. It's going to happen. Everyone messes up.
No, it is scientifically proven. You learn more from your mistakes than from the times you get it right, because you can get something right on accident, but when you make a mistake, it's a learning experience. So,
right.
At least that's my life. But
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's exactly.
Actually,
no, go for it.
I was actually wondering. So, do people kind of I know there might be some people who do it all, but do people kind of drift into little niches in the cosplay community? Like, there's some people who do armor primarily, or some people who do kind of like the work that you do, Mel, like seamstress type work, and some people are really, really good at makeup, or do most people try to be, well-rounded and do a little bit of all of them?
It definitely varies from person to person. Me, I like learning as much as I can. I try to, and unfortunately now at this point in my life and my career, trying to wear all the hats is not working. So, but yes, there's definitely people out there that like all they do are armor cosplays, or all they do is prop work, or all they do is makeup, or all they do is sewing and stuff. And I can think of perfect examples for each one. Like armor, like there's a girl, Kamui Cosplay. She is known for her armor, and she's actually written many books on how to make Warbler armor. Warbler is a thermoplastic that you can heat up and you can shape however you want. So she's become, and since she's been writing books and doing tutorials and video tutorials for years, she's become like the go-to on how to learn how to use Warbler and how to make armor. So you can definitely say like she falls in that category. My friend Bill from Punished Props, he makes foam armor. He makes crazy stuff out of foam. Like he makes Destiny guns, and he's done shacks and stuff. And that's all been out of foam. And then you wouldn't know it looking at it. So, and then he too has started writing books and has done videos and stuff like that. There's a lot of prop guys, Vulpin Props, who's a big name within the prop community. All he does is props. He doesn't do any sewing or anything like that. And he's made a bunch of props for like huge gaming companies, and to have them on display at, PAX or Gamescom or something along those lines. And then there's sewing people like me. I'm primarily sewing. I do armor, but I don't feel like my armor smithing skills are not the level of what I see other people do. Mostly because I don't have the patience for it, because armor takes a lot of tedious time to do. And I feel personally, for me, like you see a lot of armor in cons and stuff like that, and I've gotten to the point like, okay, I've seen armor now. I want to see what other stuff people can do. There's actually one of my friends that I met during Anime Expo. He was also Cosplay Senpai, and he makes the incredible gowns and perfectly fitting garments, and he's a male, but he crossplays. So he dress all his costume, almost not all of them, 90% of them I would say are all female. And so like he actually made Cinderella's gown from the new movie, and it was literally looks identical to the screen. Like the silhouette, the colors, the movement, everything was just perfect, and like you don't see him doing like armor or props or anything like that, but like he works in the fashion industry, and he works on gowns and wedding gowns for a living. So I mean, there's definitely people who excel in one area, and that's what they're known for. But there's also a lot of people like me who kind of just like do a little bit of everything, like a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing, So, but it just depends. I mean, some people. There's also some cosplayers who actually don't make anything at all. They just like wearing costumes. They commission a bunch of people to make them make stuff for them, and they just enjoy, being able to support people who can make this stuff and then wearing their creations, and that's totally fine too. So it really just varies from person to person. And like I said before, there's no right or wrong way to go about it. So
yeah. So is it kind of not is it kind of commonplace for a cosplayer who maybe like excel at one area, but they want to do a cosplay that incorporates elements from, say, armor to sewing and some of the other, and they say, hey, I want to commission an armor piece for this cosplay, and I'm going to sew the cloth portion, and then I'm going to get an armor piece from this. Does that happen? Is there a lot of interchange within the community?
Oh yeah, especially now that it's becoming so much easier to get your information in your work seen, thanks to the internet, like like Facebook, Instagram, and a variety of other things. Like it's so much easier to communicate with people that are halfway across the world, and like, hey, I like how you make stuff. Like, would you be willing? Like, can I commission you to make this prop for me? And that you see that quite often. I know a lot of my friends that are a little that do a lot more shows. They often do that. They're like, "Hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to support this crafter, and I'm going to support this crafter and this crafter, and I'm going to make this part." So it's not uncommon to see people at especially. I see a lot more actually with the bigger names in cosplay that they will commission people to make certain parts for them, and then they make one part of it or a small part of it or half of it. It doesn't, it really, again, it varies from person to person and from cosplay to cosplay.
And I think that's kind of a cool thing too, because especially like you said with the bigger names, and I know a couple names come to mind that actually do that, and I've always kind of looked at it like that's kind of a way to give back, because everyone started from the ground. Well, most people started from the ground. I don't know many in the cosplay realm yet who quote inherited, or anything like that. So like everyone started pretty much from the ground and worked their way up. And so it's a unique, it reminds me a lot of like the streaming and, video game, the guys who are playing video, or everyone who's playing video games for professionally, everyone started at the same level and they work their way up. And now there's people, I don't know, it sounds weird saying that they're at the top, but it's like they're well known. And so by supporting a crafter or something like that, they're kind of, I've always kind of seen that as kind of them being like, look, this person's really good. You need to give them props too. And it's kind of like, and I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's kind of always the sense that I've gotten with that, is that it's kind of a giving back to the community that they've been a part of.
Mm-hmm. I like to see it that way too. I don't always know what people's motives are for commissioning people.
Right,
but,
yeah.
Like, I mean, sometimes, like, hey, I can't make this at all. I'm just going to commission someone. Like,
fair enough.
Yeah, that I can see that happening pretty often. But I know there's quite a few people who do it specifically to give back to the community, to go like, okay, this person who's an up and coming prop maker, I want to commission you to make this gun for me, so that way they can kind of like give them more exposure. So, and I honestly wish I was at that level financially with what I do, to like commission other people, like, hey, you make really cool stuff, like, can you make this for me, so that way I can get you some more business or something. I really wish I was at that point, because then it also not only it cuts down stress level for me if I have a show, because if I'm going to a convention and I'm working it, meaning I'm going there, I'm having a table, I'm doing panels and stuff like that, there's so much prep work before that besides just like making a costume. Like, making the costume is so far down on that list before I prep for a show.
which honestly is like the most backwards way. Like,
it's very backwards.
To me, it's like, really? Like, I mean, but once you say, like, when you say it, it makes sense. Like, it does, like, when I hear it, but it's not what I think when I'm looking at like cosplayers who, have panels and stuff. I'm like, oh man, they must have spent so much time on those costumes. And it's like, no, they probably spent more time getting ready for the table and the panel and all the, like, that's.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
It depends upon the costume. Like, sometimes obviously the costume is going to be a really labor intensive stuff, but a lot of the stuff I wear at conventions where I'm working, I don't bring out the ones that are like crazy insane costumes, because generally those are really either hard to wear for extended periods of time, they're hard to walk in, they're hard to move in, you can't sit, you can't eat, you can't go to the bathroom, your wig hurts, the list goes on. So a lot of times if you see me at a convention, the costume I'm wearing is because it's comfortable. And I can wear it for 12 hours, and I can go to the bathroom in it, and I can go.
That actually was one of the questions that we had, was how does that work? Like,
we could go further into that. It's there's some funny stories I could tell about trying to go to the bathroom. Let me just say, when you get into cosplay, find someone that you have full trust in and you have no qualms with being naked in front of, because there will be a point for which you will need that.
You will need that trust.
You will need
Everyone
that trust.
should have that person.
So funny story. Last week, this last weekend, but the weekend before, I was at Super Toy Con with my good friend Steph, and we were doing the Overwatch bunny suits. So they're like the Playboy bunny outfits, but they're Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to go to the bathroom, and we put snaps and stuff in the crotch so we could, bathroom. And she went to the bathroom, and I hear, "Hey, Mel," and I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "So, how comfortable are you in getting close to my crotch?" I'm like, "I guess I'm fine with it. Why? What's up?" She's like, "I can't snap my crotch to my bunny suit. Can you do it, please?" I'm literally up in like all her business, snapping and putting the stuff together. And then, that's not the first time. She's done it to me before, where I've had bodysuits where I couldn't snap the crotch and she had to do it. You had to have someone do it for you. And, there's been times like I remember I was putting spray tanner on to kind of just like even out my skin tone, because I was doing a kind of a skimpy costume. So I put the spray on nylons on as kind of like an airbrushing the skin, so all the skin looks nice, because I couldn't really wear like nylons or something with what I was wearing. So I wanted to have that, but like since the top was skimpy, I had to like pretty much be topless and to have someone spray me, so that way it would cover everything. And so that was a little awkward moment too, just kind of like, "So can you do this for me? You're gonna have to see the girls on top." I'm like, "I'm sorry, but I don't know another way to do this. So if you have any ideas, I'm open to suggestions." So
I've actually done a spray tan before.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you've ever contemplated asking me to do a spray tan, just think, because I approached it like I was staining a deck. Dude, I was like, more is better. It'll last more years. The rain is going to beat off this and it's going to be awesome. But no, this person, I actually changed this person's ethnicity. And it was not...
Oh,
it's
man.
not a good thing. So maybe I'm not that cosplay buddy. Maybe I'm more of a viewer.
maybe you're more of an armor assistant, like this person to help hold the armor and like
I could hand you cod pieces and the like. Yeah,
exactly. You are the official cod piece critter honor. That is you.
So
Justin.
Just happened.
I am the stand over there and don't touch anything person.
So, I mean, and that actually kind of leads into the question of like the materials. Where do you purchase materials?
Pretty much anywhere you can think of. Like, I'm at the point where anytime I go into any store, it doesn't matter if it's the grocery store, it doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter where I'm at. If I'm walking around, I'm always having in the back of my mind what costume I'm working on. And if I'm out and I see something, "Oh, that's going to work perfect for blah, 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 blah," then I buy it. Or if I had the money, assuming I have the money, obviously don't go broke making costumes, guys. Like, be financially responsible. But I like, because you're always thinking in the back of your mind, and like back to that thinking outside the box. You don't just limit yourself to like, "Oh, I have to buy my stuff at Joann's." Like, go to Goodwill stores. Like, I mean, if you want to buy leather, but you can't afford leather brand new, go to a Goodwill store and buy old leather coats and chop them up and use the leather from that. Home Depot is a great place. Home Depot is like the cosplayer's paradise for people who want to make like props and stuff. Like, I can't go into Home Depot if I'm working on something and spend less than like $50. Like, between the spray paint and wood and fillers and miscellaneous stuff like dowel rod screws and stuff of that nature. Like all that stuff adds up pretty quick. And like Home Depot sells like this pink insulation foam, which is great for carving like really crazy shapes for props. And then you can cover it in Worbla or wood glue or whatever material you want and make it sturdy. And those sheets are like $5. And it just takes a little bit of time to sit there and carve it and sand it down, and bada bing bada boom, you have yourself like this crazy like spherical weird prop thing. The options are endless. So like I go to Home Depot a lot, obviously, for prop stuff. Obviously Joann's is pretty, I think they're everywhere in the United States. So like those are good places to go to kind of like see what they have, especially if you're not in an area where you have an alternative source for fabric. I'm very fortunate, and I have a place where they go and they buy a bunch of fabric from the fashion district in LA and in New York and bring it all back here and sell it for really, really cheap. So I can get some crazy different texture fabrics, but the thing is they're never going to have the same thing in stock twice. So like if I see something, then I buy it, that I'm like, oh, that's going to work for that. It's probably not going to be here in like 3 weeks when I want to get it later. I'm going to go ahead and buy it now, type of thing. So people who are in like Southern California, the LA fashion district is like the best place, literally, the best place to buy fabric, because, and not even fabric, trims, zippers, sewing machines, crystals, beads, all that type of stuff is down in the LA fashion district. And they have crazy cheap prices. Like you literally cannot get it cheaper anywhere else. New York has some really great fashion districts. I've never been there personally. I have friends that go there. New York has some really good spandex places. So since my place where I go to fabric here in town, they don't have a lot of options in terms of spandexes, like PVC spandex, which is that shiny stuff, or heavyweight spandex, or like different textures and stuff. So I end up having to buy a lot of that online. And either Spandex House or World of Spandex are two places that I always like to go and check. And they're back in New York. For casting supplies, since I'm based out of Reno, Nevada, the closest place for me is Reynolds Am, which again, guys, if you guys are listening to this and you want to know the actual links, feel free to message me. I will give you the links. Reynolds Am is great. They have a bunch of casting supplies and molding materials and pigments for your casting, and they're super fast. Like I ordered something, I literally had the box a day and a half later, and that's insane. So, and it was like a huge box. I ordered like a gallon of casting plastic, another like quart size of casting plastic, a bunch of colorants and stuff like that. So, foam, if you have like, there's a lot of great places to buy foam online. I know I already mentioned his name, but Bill Punished Props, he has a whole guide on where to buy foam and where to get it and what type of thicknesses and densities and stuff. So he's great to check out on where to buy for foam, like EVA foam. I go down to Harbor Freight because you can buy those floor mats, which is EVA foam, and you can buy a pack of them for $10. And one pack has 4 sheets that are like 2 foot by 2 foot. So you can make a whole set of armor for like $10 out of that foam. And then you can get the smaller sheets in different thicknesses at different craft stores like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I really like Hobby Lobby because they have a lot of weird different stuff in there that you don't really see other places. So you can find some cool like little knickknacks like beads or pendants and stuff for like headpieces or for the front of your armor or whatever. So they're kind of cool and have some interesting stuff. Etsy is a really, really cool place to look for trims and accessories or materials to make that. So like one of the big projects I did this year, it was based off of an artist artwork. Her name is Sakizo, and she makes these crazy elaborate drawings of these girls in like these corsets and ruffles and hair that's 2 miles high, and they're just insane. There's a lot of details on them. So I finally tackled one of her art pieces this year, and I went on Etsy because you could get these cabochons for really cheap, and I could buy the frames for really cheap, and all I do is assemble it. And you can find like cool trim, like cool lace for pretty cheap, and because some of it comes from China, they just supply it on Etsy. So Etsy's become a really good source for finding some unusual trims and trinkets and stuff like that for adding stuff on. For like Warbler, there's a couple different places you can buy it in the U.S. Unfortunately, the only authorized retailer for Warbler is Yayahan. Every other place, from my understanding, from I heard, they have to buy it full price and then resell it because she's the only authorized retailer in the United States. But cosplaysupplies.com sells it. Arta Wigs, they're selling Black Warbler, which is supposed to be a little bit smoother. There's also another newer product on the market called Fibra that is really cool. It's a thermoplastic, but it's completely smooth. It has a texture like ABS plastic. So you don't have to do like any prep work like you have to do with Warbler, because Warbler has kind of a sandpapery texture to it. So you have to put like a really lots of primer on it to make it smooth. Tandy Leather is actually a great resource for costumes, not only just for leather, but they have a lot of belts and rings and stuff for adding for like, especially if you're doing armor and you need a lot of those like D-rings or metal loops or studs or belt buckles and stuff. Tandy Leather has all of that, and it's great, and they're really helpful, obviously, with leather stuff, but they also sell their own thermoplastic called Terraflex, and it's a little bit smoother than Warbler, not as smooth as Fibra, and I really like that. That's one of my favorite thermoplastics to use. So there's a lot of resources out there, and we can literally have a whole hour of Mel listing off places to buy stuff for cosplay. So most of the time, if you see something that you like, just ask the cosplayer in a comment like, hey, where did you get that material? And 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you where they got that. Or, like, where's the best place for that? There's a lot of different YouTube videos and stuff like that on where for resources and stuff. I'm actually considering like going down and like making a huge index post of all these different places that I go to. So, and I didn't even get into wigs, eBay. So, like I said, the possibilities are endless on where to go for supplies.
So my question is, first of all, I just want to tell you, I think it's amazing that you're shopping at Home Depot and Harbor Freight. Maybe the coolest person to ever shop at Harbor Freight. But so I was just wondering, whenever you're purchasing a lot of these things together, do you ever get like a funny look? Like, what do you got going on?
Oh yeah. My favorite is when you go into like Walmart that has like everything. So I don't like to shop at Walmart, but I will shop at Walmart if it's crunch time and I need something like, okay, I need body fashion tape, I need pantyhose, I need black spray paint, I need screws, and I need fabric, and I need glue, and I also need a thing of Dr. Pepper and some beer.
And Eggos.
Like, yeah. So, like you go in there and you buy like these really random things. Like, it's really funny too when you throw in like some kids' toys in there, like a toy pistol or something, just to really keep them guessing.
Not looking good for you.
Just to keep them guessing.
This sounds like a kidnapping is about to happen.
Like, sometimes I will look at the stuff I have on my counter, and I have bright pink hair, and where I live is really good old boy, network. Everyone knows everyone type of mentality here, and Reno's 5 years at least behind the times on most stuff. So me having pink hair, I dress really different from most people here, and I'm buying all this really weird stuff, like all this spray paint and pantyhose and fashion tape and duct tape. Like, people just kind of look at me like, what are you doing with all this stuff? Like,
He just goes, big night.
Yeah. I think Walmart have been the ones where you've seen the most peculiar reactions. Luckily now the cosplay has become a little bit more known throughout the general
Yes.
public around the Muggles. Like you can, like if I go to like to Joann's and stuff, if I go to Joann's and stuff, they add this on like, oh yeah, I make costumes. Like, oh, you're a cosplayer. I'm like, yeah, you know what that is now. So, yeah.
Wow.
I'm still stuck on the fact that we're all Muggles, but
that we're Muggles, but
no, you guys aren't Muggles. If you know what cosplay is, like, see, you guys are you're in the grand scope of geek culture, and you know what cosplay is. So you're not a Muggle. I'm talking about like.
Well, that's good.
I'm definitely not a Muggle. Okay, because for my son's 5th birthday, I said, you know what? He is crazy about Batman. I went online and got a movie quality Batman costume.
There you go.
Sent to me, and I put that sucker on. And just so you know, I'm in Texas. His birthday is July 22nd, and I'm wearing a rubber suit.
So you're committed.
At a pool party.
Wow. Yeah.
So wow. Justin actually stood in the pool.
Yes. No. Yeah, I actually most of the rubber is still adhered to my skin.
Oh my gosh.
It was actually so hot that I literally cut my appearance short, jumped over the fence, popped like half the balloons, and all the kids cried. Worst Batman ever.
Or best Batman.
Review. Or the best Batman. You know, it was a Christian Bale. I talked with a very gravelly tone. But but I owned it. Rubber boots and all. And
word on the street is that you're supposed to have a Destiny costume in the works. That's just the word on the street.
I was wondering when that was coming up.
I have a Smurf. I have a Smurf in the works. Yeah, I do have a male awoken that's as soon as I see Marasov peek her little head out from WindoftheStars land, there will be yeah. Come to life.
Well, you better be prepared come September 20th because that's my personal deadline.
Is that your deadline?
That's my personal deadline. I want it done before the expansion drops. Like,
ooh,
for reals.
There needs to be some sort of a face-off. I don't know if it could be maybe like a Periscope duel, or we can make it happen.
Oh man. Well, I guess it does lead into another question that we've had is, talking about the different characters. Most characters that you probably have done have been from a variety of either anime or video games. Where do you source material for costumes? Like, I don't know, does that, how do you figure out exactly what needs to go into costumes, and especially for like sewing and armor, we kind of talked about that, but like how do you get the dimensions? Materials? Like how do you get the dimensions and the I don't really know. I am not a cosplayer, so I don't know how to verbalize that, but like how do you get like a model to design the costume off of? Do you just like play a lot of video games and wait for the person to turn around? Actually,
that's not far from the truth sometimes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Actually, before the internet became a magical place for cosplayers, I remember sitting there with my PlayStation, and I was making Trish from Devil May Cry, and obviously internet again in its infancy, and even though the internet is kind of still like similar to what we know it today, no one really put here's a huge turnaround of what this character looks like. So I remember I was sitting there with, again, I think I still had that 5 megapixel camera, and I'm sitting and I have like literally like a 13-inch TV from the 1980s that I was playing on my PlayStation 2 with. And the character Trish, they actually had it to where she just continuously turned around if you went to like her profile. And so I'm sitting there with my camera, click, 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 like every time she like continuously clicking, because I had no way of screen capping it at the time. And I would also like try to Google on YouTube was just becoming a thing back then, and I would find like people putting like some of the cutscenes from the games on there, and I would go and look up Google and YouTube and try to find the cutscenes, and then like pause it real quick and screen cap it, so that way I could see it. But of course, we're not talking like 1080p resolution, guys. We're talking like 430 or something like that. Where it's like really teeny and kind of fuzzy. So I did that. Now it's much easier. A lot of companies, especially gaming companies, have really picked up that like people want to cosplay their characters, and I know Horizon put out a great character reference that literally has swatches for everything, had close-ups of all the different stitching detail. They actually talked about like, oh, when we were designing this character, we were thinking that this is actually made out of this for X, Y, and Z reason. And that type of information is incredibly useful. And I would imagine for everybody, but for me, being able to know the like why this piece is on there or what it's made of for X, Y, and Z reason really helps me go, okay, if this person exists in real life, what would that be made out of? Like anytime I approach a project, that's the first step I go to. Like, okay, what, if this person was set in the future, like, okay, what type of materials would you see in the future in this type of universe and stuff like that? And like, would this be functional? Would this not be functional? You kind of start breaking it down and try to think about it that way, because for me, I know a lot of other people are the same way. The costume is supposed to tell the story of your character without you even saying a word. You want to be able to walk out and people to go, okay, I know this about your character. I know this about your character. I know this about your character without knowing about it. And that is, to me, is so magical. Like, put on any movie, any huge blockbuster thing, turn off the sound, especially if it's a movie you don't know anything about. Turn off the sound, don't have subtitles, and sit there and watch it without any music, no dialogue, no nothing. And you're just watching what they're wearing, their environment, and then like how they're interacting. And that costume will tell you so much about that character right off the bat, without them having to say a word. And if you can actually do that with your costume in real life, then you actually are able to tell the story of that character. And to me, that is the creme de la creme of being able to be, a top-notch costume, either designer or creator or whatever you want to do, is be able to tell the story of your character to someone who knows nothing about what that character is. So that to me is really important. But if you want to know more about the way you were actually asked, but yeah, like turning stuff around, like now I just take screenshots, especially like if on the PlayStation, it makes it so easy to take screenshots of stuff. And I've actually emailed game companies before and say, hey, this character you don't have any character references for and appears for 5 seconds in your game and I never see the back of her. Can you like send me a picture? And they've actually sent me pictures before, like, oh yeah, and they'll pull up like the whole entire character and the game model. Here you go, have fun. I'm like, wow. Great.
Well, didn't they do that with Mara Soft?
Yes.
Wasn't
Mara? They did.
That was recent, wasn't it? Did they finally release that, or did they only send it to people who request it?
I don't know what they. I found an actual high-res photo of her that has a turnaround and close-ups of certain parts.
Because I remember like people freaking out when they finally released it, because it was like, because obviously we only see her in cutscenes, and you never see like anything other than the front, and so everyone's like, "What's on the back?"
yeah, and like, oh my gosh, like Mara Saba is a perfect example. When I looked at her character thing, so much more about like taking the base knowledge I knew about her at the time. This is before I started getting really into like the lore of Destiny, because I planned on making Mara Soft like 2 years ago. So this is like vanilla Destiny when I started researching her. And then when I actually finally was able to see that back picture, I'm like, holy crap, it makes so much sense on why she's called the Kells and stuff like that, because you see all that inspiration from the Kell designs in her design. And so you're like, oh, well, she has the markings of the Kells and of the Fallen on her back, like on the butt cape of her costume. She has the fur around her like the Kells do, and you see so much of that inspiration. But then you also see parts of the Awoken designs into it. So you definitely see what's in her design, that she is the one that melded the two together and has created this empire. And if you just knew the base information of design wise of what the Fallen look like and what the Awoken look like, and you saw that, I would guarantee 9 times out of 10 people would be like, well, does she like control Fallen or something like that? Like, and they wouldn't have to know anything about it, So like, and being able to, it's insane how much storytelling just a costume can tell about a character. So now we're getting to the deep, heavy stuff.
Well, and, I mean, yeah, and, that leads, really into, talking about making stuff and all that. How do you make time for how do you make time for doing a costume or your craft justice? And, and that then leads to the next usually logical question that most people have is, what type of investment does good cosplay require, monetary and time wise?
Oh man, those are both really extensive questions. For me, I have become fortunate enough to where I have been able to take costume making and turn it into a living. It's not a great living because it's kind of like an artist salary, because I see what I do as being an artist, and obviously working towards better that. But because it is, I have to carve out time out of my day. Like, okay, I'm going to spend, this hour to this hour working on stuff. When it was more just of a hobby, when I was going to school full time and, working and blah, 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 I felt it was a little bit more difficult to find the time because I have all this other stuff going on. My builds were obviously a lot more simple at the time. Like, the stuff I make now is a lot more complex. I use a lot more, sorry, my dog just walked in and like jumped on my lap. Okay, out. Sorry. Dog stuff, guys. Dog stuff.
Oh, that's not a cosplay thing? That really just happened?
Woof. College. So when I was in college and working, and it was more of a hobby at the time, I literally would be like, okay, whatever small little fraction of free time I have, I'm working on my costume. Like you kind of like, okay, do I want to go out and see this movie, or do I want to work on my costume? You start making those type of choices. And actually a lot of cosplayers, you will see they often will like, okay, I don't want to go see this movie, or I don't want to go out with my friends at this particular moment because I want to finish my costume. There is a lot of time sacrificed towards making costumes. There's been, when I was working on stuff for Fanime, like that big Kiza costume, and I would be in my sewing room working on stuff, and I hear my boyfriend in the other room with our clan playing Destiny, and I hear him like, oh, I just got 335 gloves. I'm like, gosh dang it, I need 335 gloves. So, like, and you're just like, man, I really want to go play Destiny, but you're like, no, I need to finish my costume. So you have to kind of pick and choose what is important to you. And if it's something you really want to do, you're going to find the time. You'll figure out a time of day in your week or your day or whatever to do something that you really love. It's something that you're passionate about. You'll make the time, it's like they always say. And investment wise for time and money, it can vary. There's some costumes that I can make in a day on like $50, like really easy stuff, school uniforms and stuff of that nature. But there's other ones like the Sakiza costume costed me, we won't say how.
The black beast?
The black beast. Yes. The black beast.
That thing was amazing.
That one, I started buying supplies for it in January of this year, and I barely finished it with barely enough money. I still skipped out on a lot of things I wanted to do on it because I ran out of time and money, and then I didn't finish it until May. Technically May. There's still stuff I want to finish on it. So I started working on it in March. It was March, February, somewhere around there. And I was still sewing in the hotel room come end of May. So, and that's someone who's like sitting there sewing a lot during the day. I still made other costumes during the other time, and I work other jobs. So I still had an obscene amount of time dedicated to it, like more time than what normal people would be able to dedicate it if they work full-time jobs and stuff. So that just gives you an idea of how big that project was. Ayla the Huntress, which people might have seen when we did the Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
That one took me 2.5 months of working on it consistently in my free time. That's when I was still working on another full-time job. I hadn't really transitioned into doing costumes full-time. So I was still working, 8-hour days at a normal, Monday through Friday job. And, coming home, and I didn't have a house then. We lived in a little, 2-bedroom apartment. And I remember sitting on the crappy floor of my apartment and watching Star Wars movies and weaving chainmail, so
that is a totally worthwhile endeavor, and we support that.
Yeah.
both of those, weaving chainmail and watching Star Wars movies.
I love the story about the Huntress, where one of those awesome pictures where you're like in the woods is actually in like a drainage ditch. It's like off.
Oh yeah. The one that you guys actually put in there, we took at a convention it's called Fanime, but it's at the San Jose Convention Center, and it's in downtown San Jose. So normal downtown place, lots of buildings and stuff like that. But down a couple blocks away from the con, there is this like runoff stream culvert thing. I don't know what to call it. There's like a creek there, and they have like some trees and stuff like that. But then like there's a small little section that looks nice, but then like there's the overpass for the road, and then you walk down and that's where the trees and the water and stuff is. And then there's like hobos sleeping underneath the bridge and peeing and doing whatever hobos do. And then there's like a bunch of garbage. Like we found condoms down there and stuff before. It's really disgusting. And the photographer worked magic. Like we actually threw some like fake dirt on me, like makeup dirt, not real dirt, because I don't want to touch that real dirt because we don't know what's been peed on. So we put a bunch of that on me, and he like took lights and put lights in the trees and stuff behind me so they would glow. And we took photos right there by this like really nasty water drainage ditch thing. So, and like on the other side of the water, there's like a park and stuff, but it's not it didn't look as cool. So, and I've actually gone down there for so many photos. It's ridiculous. Like every year I go to that convention and I take photos down in that area, and the photos always look really cool.
To the weird hobo ditch.
You don't go down there by yourself, put it that way. Especially if you're a female. Especially if you're a female dressed in a skimpy costume. You do not.
And you're dressed like the Huntress.
Well, actually, the Huntress is great because a lot of people get really intimidated by it. So I don't think people would actually want to, do anything to me if I was wearing the Huntress.
They wouldn't mess around with the Huntress.
No, like I actually wore that at San Diego Comic-Con a few years ago, and San Diego Comic-Con, you're literally like cattle, like you're squished together. You cannot move. Like it is wall-to-wall people. And I'm right outside the convention center, and it's still wall-to-wall people because buses are letting people off. People are trying to get on the bus, lining up for halls and whatnot. So this is still wall-to-wall people even outside. And I remember walking down, I don't even know where I was walking to. I was just walking down the outside area, and I had Ayla on, and I had the war paint, and I put on my resting face and kind of put my arms down at my side and like made fists to make myself look really intimidating. And people saw me, and I just saw their eyes go wide, and they were kind of like back away and just kind of like parted the seas. It was like the Red Sea parting, and it was great. I'm like, oh, cool. I don't have to like shoulder check anyone or go, excuse me. excuse me, 10 times to try to get past them.
You just sounded like May there.
Sorry.
So yeah, the Huntress is probably one of my favorites. I also really, really dig the Lilith from Borderlands.
I love Lilith. She's my homie.
Oh, she looks so good though. Like,
I love Lilith.
You look like you're straight out of Borderlands though, with the graphic like line work. Yeah, I really like it.
I have a love-hate with that costume. I adore Borderlands. I adore Lilith. She's like one of my favorite all-time characters in games. But that costume not only takes about 4 hours and change to get into, it is incredibly uncomfortable. Those really? I don't know why, but yellow contacts
it just doesn't look like there's a whole lot to it. It's like a shirt.
Oh, honey.
I underestimate. Clearly.
That is the best result. Just
okay, your face.
See, then I did my job well, because then if I make it look easy,
it's supposed to look effortless. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. The tattoos are amazing.
Those are all hand painted on every single time I wear it.
Does someone else do that? There's no way you could do that all on yourself, right? Generally,
no.
Really?
Yes. The first 2 times I wore it, I had Zach help me, but after that, I often go to conventions by myself, especially if I'm working or I meet a friend there. And obviously, if my friend's getting ready in costume, I don't like, hey, can you carve out an extra 2 hours out of your getting ready time to like paint on me? So I had to do it myself. And I've learned.
If you put it that way, but if you were a little bit more flowery about it, maybe they'd do it.
Well, let's be honest. Like when you're good friends with someone, that's how you talk to them. Like, hey, can you paint some crap on me? And they're like, bro, no, that's gonna take like 2 hours. I don't have time to do that. You're like, it's. I mean, unless they're not wearing something that day. But I mean, it's pretty rare. Like if you're a cosplayer and you're rooming with other cosplayers, like generally you actually have stuff planned together, or you guys have your own projects and stuff you want to wear. So like they're busy with getting ready themselves. So like, you can't rely on someone else to paint you unless you hire. I mean, I could hire someone to come in and just airbrush it on me, and it'd probably take like 15 minutes, especially if I made a stencil. Probably not even that, but I'm cheap and I don't have the money to pay someone professional, and I know if I want someone to do it, I know what their time and their money and the supplies are worth. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to expect to probably pay like $100 for someone to come do it. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a friend will come and do it for me on the cheap, but that's an expense I have to factor in on top of, food, and if I have to factor travel and booth space, like then that's just another expense, So it's just like, what, I'll just get up an extra 2 hours early and I'll just paint it on myself. So,
and it looks amazing. So
thanks.
So,
but most of the shell shading on the costume, that's all on the costume. Like I don't have to do that every time. It's just the body, like the blue tattoo.
Did you draw that on that costume?
Yes.
That looks great. Like it captures that whole Borderlands feel.
Yeah. So all the Borderlands effect on that is all painted or drawn onto the actual costume.
I like it.
Yeah. Same thing with Maya and Athena. Both of them are the same ways. But those that costume, the contacts are the worst. I don't know what it is with yellow contacts. I've tried maybe about 5 different pairs of yellow contacts, but they're all just extremely painful to wear, that I can only wear for a couple hours. But once I'm in Lilith, I have a ball. Like I just love it. I get to go out to Borderlands people and talk about Borderlands. Like I absolutely adore it. But getting to in Lilith is a whole entire thing. And then like the makeup on that is so intense. Like I do so much contouring. The way I do my lipstick, to make her lips look poutier and bigger. Like I totally line outside of my lips to change my whole entire lip shape. It's really intense. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I can see. I take back my statement. There's a fair bit that goes into this costume. I apologize.
and armor, and then you have to throw a prop in there that you have to carry all day. No.
No, that is a really good looking one. Like captures the entire spirit of the game. And like I could not know very much about Borderlands, which is actually where I'm at with my Borderlands knowledge.
Shame.
And I could take I could take one look at that and I could go Borderlands, like just from having played the introduction on one of the games.
Shame.
So I've done more than that. I've done more than play the introduction on. I played a fair bit. Okay.
We'll discuss this at a later date.
Son of a. Okay, just move on. Just move on. So that was awkward. Let's move on. So, yeah, I've actually got a question for you, Mel. Other than how much do you hate me for not knowing Borderlands better than I do? What are you actually working on right now, other than Queen Mara? Which you've already mentioned.
Well, Mara, I'm kind of in between projects right now. I just started the Patreon thing, so I've kind of left it to them to kind of vote and go.
So you're taking requests right now.
If you're on Patreon, you can voice. I kind of like, okay, guys, here are some stuff that I've started. Here are some projects I bought materials for. Here's some stuff I actually want to work on right now. What do you guys want to see? And I won't say what it is quite yet, but it's cool. It's a character I've done before, but it's a different take on it based on some artwork, and there's armor involved and cool fabrics. So
sweet.
So, but there's also other stuff I hope to start within the end before 2016 ends. I still have a bunch of fabric to make a Vault Hunter from Fallout 4. Like I have everything. I have the Pip-Boy, I have the fabric, I have the boots, I have the leather. I just need to sit down and make it. I'm a huge Naruto fan, which I think we've mentioned before. So I have another Sakura that I started a few months ago that is based off some artwork. And her outfit it's really cool. She has some cool she has different lines and different silhouette and a different design. There's a lot of cool gradients and like flowy fabrics. So that looks really cool. There's the Destiny Hunter that has been on the list to make forever. And I was going to do the current Iron Banner with the wolf cloak and stuff. However, now after seeing the trailer that came out today, I think I might want to make the new Iron Lord's armor. So we might, I think I'm going to wait now until after September and see what the new armor looks like and then decide which armor set I want to make. But I already started buying stuff for the Hunter like months ago. So
whatever you do, make the trials gauntlets with the cobra knife. That needs to be the arms.
So I literally, no joke, I spent 2 months debating between trials gear, like the Wing Sun stuff and the Iron Banner stuff. And the only reason I didn't go with all Osiris gear is because I don't think that white and yellow would translate really well in real life.
No. Put a shader on it.
But then it doesn't look like Osiris gear, man.
You need to do Osiris gear with Chalsa Donkey. No. There is no better gauntlet for a hunter than the trials one with the cobra knife.
I do agree. Those cobra knives are pretty sick. Like they are the sickest arms in the game currently.
Thank you.
Yes, I will give you that. They are the best looking.
See, this is what I love about having a hunter on.
Well, duh, because Hunter Master Race, like, hello.
Thank you.
Class.
Yeah,
Well-
no, we've transcended class.
Oh,
We're at race status.
transcended
Race
class.
status
God.
confirmed.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so.
Willie's not here.
Yeah.
Willie's not here. Have fun.
Yeah, he can't go Titan Master Class anymore. No.
Yeah, he can't even
Hunters.
reach the keyboard to type. So
I like how we got Destiny stuff in here, even though
yeah, you gotta work it in there. You gotta work it in there.
So, but yeah, there's quite a few stuff that is on the table to be made.
Nice.
So, okay, so we talked about the future. How many completed builds do you have? Do you even know?
I stopped counting after 100 and change.
Ooh.
So-
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and
no, go
that's-
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that's because I've made stuff for other people too. I've made stuff for friends. I've done stuff for clients commission wise. I actually made a costume for George R. Martin. That was really cool.
No way.
Yeah, seriously. I made him a Robert Baratheon costume, and I made his wife a the old lady from the Tyrells. What's her name? I can't think of her name. Orlais, or because of no. I made her costume based off of that character.
Wow.
So you can, if you go, like, I don't think he's worn it recently. I made it like 3 years ago. But when season 4, whatever 2 seasons ago were, if you see pictures of him in a Robert Baratheon thing, and he has like the crown on, and he's like sitting with the, like, white dire wolves, that costume, I made it. So
What?
I'm serious. I will send you photos.
Amazing.
I'll send you photos.
That is amazing.
And I made him in like a week, and I didn't sleep for like 5 days. It was not amazing at the time, but I'm like, I'm making stuff for George R. R. Martin. I do not care.
Sleep is not necessary.
Yes,
no, I drank so much 5-hour energy during that week, and then I just slept for like 3 days straight. So, yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So, but I
once
made a lot.
Once you've cosplayed something, do you kind of put that in the vault and then you can call back on it whenever you want, or is it kind of a deal once you've done something, you've done it, and it's kind of
some yes, some no. Some of the projects that I feel really particularly proud of, or I like the way I look in, I end up wearing a lot more. There's some projects that I've made for like groups or friends, and we'll wear them once together, and then it's kind of awkward to wear it alone. So then I won't really wear it until we wear it again. There's some costumes I've made that I've loved it. I loved everything about it. I like the way the fabric looks. I like the way it came together. And then I put it on and I hate the way it looks on me. And I go, no. I'm not wearing this again. So there's been those very tragic scenarios. But luckily now that doesn't happen too much anymore, because now I'm able to like look at something pretty objectively. I'm like, I don't like the way this looks. Why? And I can go, okay, I don't like this because it's making my waist look too wide, or I don't like this because it makes this part look unattractive, or whatever reason that I don't like it. And I'm able to problem solve it and figure out a way to fix it so I do like it. So whereas before I would just like cry and go, I spent all this time and I look awful.
You should not do that.
That was past young Mel who didn't know better. I've learned from my mistakes.
There you go. See, I was gonna say, do you actually? I know you've made plenty of costumes. Have you ever made weapons?
Yeah. What is something off the top of my head? I've made Diva's gun. I made Diva's gun.
You made that gun?
Yeah, it's made out of foam.
Oh, I thought that was the My Mini Factory.
No, it's made out of.
You actually made that one?
Yeah.
That looked really good.
It doesn't look as great up in person because it's the first time I ever did a foam build for a gun. So I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. Whatever, make it work.
So that was like EVA foam?
Yeah, it's EVA foam and craft foam. And then there's an MDF center base. MDF is a multi-density wood fiber. So it's like a piece of wood in the center. Really thin, it's like a 1/4 inch.
Do you start with like a block of foam and then you like cut at it, or?
No, actually. Well, for Diva's Gun, no. For other projects, I actually, what is one I did a giant carving out? I did this costume for a game company beginning of the year. It's from Castle Clash. I did the character is called Candy Cane, and then she has this huge staff. And the
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, that big gold thing at the top. I literally took a block of foam and like drew out the basic shape of it and then carved it away and then made the thing. So my wizard staff, which has been a work in progress since last November, and I didn't finish it at a certain date, and I said, you know what, never mind. And I just like, it's been sitting in a corner since then. That's all just kind of like, again, drew out the basic shape and then carved out of foam. But like Diva's Gun, like a lot of times I will draw out the picture, or if there's a good reference like there was for Diva's Gun, I will actually print out the gun to size, to scale, and then use that as my template. So like with Divas, I printed out 2 pictures of the gun at scale, and then one that was like just the picture of the side. So like what you would see if you looked at the side of the gun. And then I used that as my template for all the different size pieces of foam, and then just kind of built up different layers of foam and glued them together, and then used my sanders, like the belt sander, a Dremel, and a bunch of stuff like that to shape the foam. And then you use like contact cement or barge cement glue, and you glue it together in layers and stuff like that, and then you seal it. There's a couple of different ways to seal the foam, and then once the foam is sealed, you just paint it like normal. That the Diva Gun was actually all painted with acrylics. So the primer, which was the sealer, which was all black, and then I went back and painted all the pink and the silver, gray colors, green and whatever. So so that was how that one was built. So like each prop has different type of challenges, and since I travel so much now, I now when I build something, I don't just like go, oh, I'm just gonna build it, whatever. I have to think, okay, how can I build this so I can break it down into pieces that fit into a suitcase and that will survive a trip on a plane
and won't get you arrested.
It won't get you arrested. Let me tell you funny stories about how I've taken my ALA chainmail through TSA in my carry-on because it's too heavy to put it on in my check bag. Because that chainmail is like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And 10 pounds in a check bag is such valuable realty that you're like, no, you're going to carry that on, Melissa. Like, that's going in your carry-on. So I've gotten a lot of strange looks with that one before. A lot of questions and stuff.
All the terrorists are using chainmail these days.
Well, it's just the metal. It's
yeah.
No, go for it.
Oh, I usually, to save time and hassle, I just pull it out of the bag and throw it in its own bin and just send it through the thing. So that way when they go, what the hell is this? They're like, oh, it's chainmail, you know?
Oh,
and then afterwards they go, oh, is this yours? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what is this for?
That makes no sense.
I make questions. So, and obviously you can't, if like Diva's stuff, like her gun, I actually have to check in my bag because there's no way they're going to let me fly with that on my carry-on. But like her headset and her other parts of armor that I made, like since those are made out of foam, they're a little bit more fragile. I actually pack those in my carry-on. So that way I know they're not going to get like destroyed. So
yeah. They really shouldn't be worried about Diva's gun, though. It really doesn't hurt anybody. So there's...
I don't know. I've seen a couple people wreck.
Yeah. There's been times where I've been unmech'd and I'm running around and I poop on a Reaper and then I feel like my life has purpose.
Hey, anytime you poop on a Reaper, you feel your life has purpose.
Yeah, doing a public service there.
Oh yeah,
it's gone beyond.
You want to? I think that I think the next question that a lot of people have is what would you think is your most complicated build that you've ever worked on?
Well, the Black Beast is up there. That was a very complicated, intricate costume, sewing wise. That definitely it broke my sewing machine. Actually, I had to go out and buy a new sewing machine. That's how insane that costume was. That one was pretty complicated in terms of I really wanted to make sure the silhouette of that costume was one of the most important things to me in terms of when I was making it, because Sakizo's designs, they're known for these crazy silhouettes, like these huge hairs, huge puffy dress things. And so like being able to engineer and have an understructure that helped create that silhouette was really important. And so I spent weeks alone just trying to come up with different ideas on between, bustles and petticoats and cages and hoop skirts and cages and just like all these different things that I tried to try to get that silhouette. So that was pretty and then on top of all the making like thousands of yards of ruffles, it felt like. So that was also pretty complicated. Alien was pretty complicated too. That one had a lot of firsts on it. That was the first time I ever made chainmail, and not just like I ordered the rings off of line and then I put it together. No. We took wire and did the whole entire drill bit method. So you take like a huge rod and you put it in your drill bit in your electric drill, and then you hold the wire and you kind of wrap it around to start it, and then you hold it with a pair of gloves, and then you turn the drill on real slow, and as it turns, it coils the wire for you, and then you do a whole thing of wire until it gets to the end, and then you slide it off, and then you clip them with metal clips, and so you have rings, and then you can make your chainmail. So that's how I made the rings for that chainmail. Like it was pretty insane. And then on top of that, the leather, that was the first time I've made a project with so much leather in it. I got like leather belts or leather bound books, whatever, that's not a big deal. But like make that bodysuit, it's literally a leotard, that leather bodysuit, like a backless leotard. It's ridiculous. And so like having to make and pattern that out of leather was really complicated and difficult, and I had to go use the walking foot machine and stuff, like leather machines at the shop, because I was working as a tailor at the time when I made that. And in an effort to save money, I bought a cheap hide for like $100. And I told them, like, well, this color isn't dark enough. Like, it needs to be a better color. And like, otherwise I need to go buy something different. And they're like, well, the other ones that would work are gonna be like $600. Like, well, I can't afford that. And I said, well, you can deglaze it and then re-dye it. And I'm like, that sounds like a great plan. I will do that. So
no.
That's what I actually did. I actually got the deglazer. So a deglazer takes off the whole entire finish off the leather, so you can dye it darker. And so I did that with the hide of leather. Actually, I cut all the pieces out first because I didn't want to do the whole leather hide. So I cut out the pieces and then I deglazed all of them, and then I re-dyed them and then reglazed them and then sewed it all together.
Dedication, folks. Dedication.
Yeah, and then of course that was the first time I worked with Warbler, because this was like right when Warbler was coming out, and so that was a whole new learning process on how to actually use Warbler and manipulate it to how you wanted to do the things you wanted to do. So and that one, like, that's generally when I go into a costume, like I have like this mental picture of what I want it to look like in my head when I'm done. And if I can get somewhere close to that, I am like, good job, Melissa, A+. And Alia is one of the very few that right off the bat, where I didn't really have to go back and rework much of things, that when I was done, it literally looked how I visioned it in my head. So I'm really proud of that one. That's one of the ones I'm most proud of, because I was able to, write out like 100% it right off the bat. And I didn't have to go back and rework it a bunch of times. So, but like other ones like Lilith, I have gone back and reworked that costume, I think 4 times. before to see to where it is now. And then Wizard from Diablo 3, that one I went back and I spent another 2 weeks on top of the initial build time to get it to what it looks like today. So, and I still making a prop for it. And here it is like a year and change later. So, like the complicated ones, I usually try to give myself 1 to 2 big complicated builds a year, and then the rest of stuff I kind of just like, oh, there's a quick easy costume I can wear for working booths and stuff like that, or something fun to wear with friends. But I try it because otherwise they're too expensive and too time sucks, and like to me it's important to keep putting out new content. And I'm not rich, like we're like normal people, we live normal paycheck to paycheck sometimes, and so like I have to really budget out how I'm going to spend money and how I'm going to buy and afford materials and stuff like that. So like if I would did a big project every single time every other month, then I'm like, I'm not going to have the money for it, let alone the time, so that's why when you see some cosplayers who just have crazy incredible costumes every single time, if you look, you'll see they only build maybe like 2-3 costumes a year.
Right.
Whereas some other people, who just like are pumping out costume after costume after costume, they're much simpler, easier costumes that don't cost very much and don't cost much time wise.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I, obviously we had another question kind of related to that one, which is actually a little bit more specific variation of it, is what is the most intensive makeup or hairstyle that you've ever done for cosplay?
Most intensive makeup is Lilith, between the body paint and then the weird contouring stuff. Though I have a feeling that Marcel might beat her on that one. I don't know yet. I haven't done a makeup test, so I don't know. That one's probably the most intensive makeup. Hairstyle, Borderlands 2 Lilith is a pretty intense hairstyle with the spikes and the different colors. Grace from Soulfire is a pretty intense hairstyle, not in terms of like shape, but she has rainbow hair, and I couldn't find a wig that had the colors in the right order that I wanted and all that jazz. So I actually took a white wig and hand dyed it. So I took apart Sharpies and made dye baths and sprayed it and like colored it. And then like some parts of it still didn't take. So I'm sitting there with a Sharpie and literally coloring strand by strand each section of the wig to get the right color. The Black Beast, which you've already mentioned a bunch of times, that one has a pretty intense hairstyle. I have like this whole entire styrofoam structure on my head, which has curls sewed on top of it, and then more curls falling down the back with this veil and this other crazy stuff. And that sits on top of my head, on top of a wig that already is down to my knees. And then also with like these huge clip-in extensions to make it even more volume of hair. So that one's a pretty intense head. Like I literally see myself when I looked at photos for the very first time, I could see like my neck is like scrunching down into itself, creating like what I call a gobble. So that weird patch of skin between like your chin and your neck, like a turkey. And like I could see, I call it a gobble, because I don't like that weird flap of skin or that pooch of fat. And so like since it was so heavy, that it pushes down and I can see really badly on me. So, but yeah, but those were pretty intense. Pretty intense.
So now we know what that's called. That's called a gobble. So now,
I don't know what other people call it. I call it a gobble.
So that's what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had a big question. Okay. So there's been a technological advance that's probably affected your industry more than most up till now. And that I think is the 3D printer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think 3D printing's in your future? And are you seeing a lot more 3D printed stuff in cosplay?
Oh, yeah. 3D printing has made it so even people who don't know how to build props or armor or guns or whatever it is, they have the ability to do it now if they know how to render. And heck, there's places that you don't even have to know how to render them. They'll do it for you. Like you can go online. I forget what the name of the place is because I haven't really looked into it too much because I like building it. I like scratch builds a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, but you can go on and you can get 3D printed pieces and they're already rendered for you. And you just pay a fee for like the person who puts it out. They're like, oh, okay, pay $10 and you get this file. And then you can take that file and you can go to a company and they'll print it for you and they'll ship it to you.
My Manufactory.
Yeah, I think exactly. That's what it's called. And of course you can buy 3D printer machines now. Like there's this really cool device, which I would love to have. It's called a Glowforge, and it not only 3D prints for you, it laser cuts for you. What? So yeah, crazy, right? Like crazy. So, and just having those tools available to you is insane. Like being able to just get on your computer, render it, and build a model of it and send it to a printer. Like that's insane. That is literally insane. I remember the first time I heard someone 3D printed a whole armor set, and I was just like, "What? Wait, you did what?" Like I couldn't wrap my mind around something like, I mean, you print it. Like, what do you mean you printed it? Like, how do you print armor? So the advances in that, like, I would imagine in the next 5 years, like, probably the majority of stuff you're going to see is people 3D printing stuff. Like, once that technology becomes more readily available and it gets cheaper, so it's a much easier for like the masses to get a hold of, that you're going to see it. Like, I see a lot of guns, like a lot of prop guns. Like the contest I just judged like a couple weeks ago, there was a Fallout guy who entered the contest and he actually modeled his guns. And some of him modeled, some of him he didn't model, but he got them. They're all 3D printed. And it's insane. Like he had the 10mm, they had the laser one. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's the longer one, like the laser rifle. And it looked really cool, so, and then being able, and 3D printing, like you do get the lines on it, so you do have to do some work on it. You have to. There's stuff that you can put on it, some sanding. There's some products like Epsilon and stuff that you can put on it, and that makes it smooth out, like some of resins and epoxies and stuff. So, but I mean, and it's really cool, and I would love to get into it. I just don't have. I would be one of those people like, hey, can you render this for me? Because I don't know how to do it. Like to me, that is so sci-fi. I don't know where to begin with it. So, but laser cutter. I want a laser cutter.
It's actually, it's science fiction because it's taking everything we've known about manufacturing and flipping it on its head, because everything up to this point has been, let's start with a big block of something and then let's cut it down. It's all been subtractive. Let's keep cutting it down until we get it to where we want it to be. 3D printing is, let's start with nothing and then let's put a layer and let's put a layer and let's build it up till it's what we want it to be. It's like the exact inverse of all of our manufacturing up to this point. So, and right now it's limited to a lot of cosmetic stuff, but I've seen stories where they've like tried to 3D print organs. And
I've read about some of this too.
Yeah.
Like some of the technology that's coming out.
I'm really excited to see how this stuff works out.
Yeah. I saw this one. I know this is totally a tangent here, but I saw this whole entire read this article and watched this video about this guy who's actually making prosthetics for people.
Yep.
That are 3D printed and they fit them perfectly.
And it's cheaper too.
Yeah. And then like we're able to revolutionize, we're able to give like, homeless vets, a chance at being able to walk again.
Well, and they're also doing it for third world country kids who are in war torn countries. That's the guys who are doing the Deus Ex game. They're doing a big promotional push for cybernetics, and that was one of the guys that they actually sat down and talked with, was because he not only revolutionized the entire 3D printing of limbs, but he revolutionized the way that the limbs interface with the host, so that it actually extends and it's not seamless, because obviously, you can't quite manage that, but it's nearly like the guys that are getting these, hands and stuff like that are just, they're blown away. And it's 3D printed, so they don't have to pay all the like super, expensive manufacturing and measuring and stuff like that. Because it's like, he was explaining, he's like, yeah, I messed up on one guy, so he just printed it again. Like his materials are, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's nominal compared to
having
the professional. And if you mess up the measurements on that, it's like, oh, sorry, that's going to be another $10,000. And
right,
it's like,
because my son was one of those babies that had to have the little helmet to fix his head, and it was literally like they took a 3D photo of his head with a bunch of cameras all the way around, and then they like 3D modeled his head, and then they started with this like fiberglass helmet, and then they like shaved a little bit, and then they try to fit it, and then they shaved a little bit. And I was like, now that I look at 3D printing, I'm thinking maybe you could just 3D print the thing once.
Yep. Well, I mean, especially with the 3D imaging and all that, I mean, they just take a picture,
and
pop it into a
about
process.
$10,000 to do.
I mean, well, they take the picture, and that's what Mel was saying with the rendering. They take that, pop it into the rendering software. It does all the calculations for you. Next thing you know, it's like, and it's going to town. And I don't know how long most 3D printers take, but it's not, a day maybe.
Yeah.
To print it out and shave it down. Yeah, it's 3D printing is. I mean, well, and there's another thing that's been introduced, and we kind of touched on this too at the beginning when we were talking about how you didn't have the internet and all that, but social media is revolutionized itself multiple times.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people who are kind of curious. There's pros and cons to the way social media runs, and for everyone kind of knows that, but in what ways has social media really changed the cosplay game? And I think you're really in a good position to kind of actually speak to this, because like you said, you kind of came in before all the big Instagram and Google and all these guys were really, really big out there. What ways, positive and negative, also has social media changed cosplay?
It's changed it a lot. When I got into cosplay, a lot of people communicated in the industry. It wasn't even industry. Literally, we were just a community, and no one ever thought about ways to make money off of cosplay. And maybe the only one at the time was Yaya. Yaya Han's been around for a really long time. She was a big name when I started cosplaying, like 11, 12 years ago. But at the time, we communicated mainly through this is going to sound so an email newsletter was how a lot of us communicated. Like, that was the news. Like, that's how you found out, like, what con happened here or this happened there and blah, blah, blah. That's how you found out about it. There was a huge, a lot of us resided on LiveJournal. That was a huge, there's a lot of communities. LiveJournal allowed you to have, small communities and stuff like that. And so that's how a lot of us got to know each other, too, via the internet. Cosplay.com was starting to come up during this time when I first started. They're not really a player really too much in cosplay social media anymore. But at the time they were pretty big. They were the ones. DeviantArt was a pretty big one. It still is to a degree, and not as anymore. Most cosplayers, that have been around a while, I have a DeviantArt, and I occasionally update mine, but it's not something I'm active on like I used to be. MySpace was pretty big back in the day, like pretty big back in the day. But that was more, it wasn't mainly treated for like how cosplayers have cosplay pages now. It was more of like just another way to like connect and talk with people and like share your photos. What really started to revolutionize it was definitely Facebook. Like when Facebook came into the game, that was a huge game changer. I remember having a Facebook when it was still only collegiate only. Like you had to be in the university to apply to Facebook. And I had it and I never even really used it. But then I started seeing more people use it that, you know, and then when they opened it to everyone and more people started using it. And when MySpace started to go out and, you know, Facebook started to come in, people started really using it. And then now social media is not just a way to communicate anymore like LiveJournal and stuff was. It literally is an industry all of its own. Like now I work hard to keep my social media following growing and get bigger and bigger because unfortunately a lot of conventions now, they want to see your numbers and they want to know how much of a potential draw you have for their convention. And this is a good and bad thing. It's because numbers really aren't a telltale number of how talented someone is at making costumes or just how well. I mean, it pretty much says like how good are you at marketing yourself. Unfortunately, how attractive you are. Because I mean, as much as cosplay, I promote cosplay is for everyone and everyone should cosplay. There is still this additive in society that stuff is based on your looks, which is unfortunate. But you know, obviously that's why you see a lot more girls in the cosplay that are quote unquote cosplay famous than you do guys. Because if you think about who the market is, you know, while females are becoming a dominant, not dominant, but a more vocal and a predominant force in geek culture, I would still argue that it's still more of a male culture than it is a female culture in the large scope of things. Like, it's changing. It's changing pretty rapidly. Like, it's not as you know, I definitely think it's more like 40-60 than it used to be like 80-20, you know? So
well,
it's getting close.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know numeric, like straight up numbers. I think it's actually closer to 50-50.
Is it now?
Yeah, because I was just reading, well, because, you know, we're really good friends with Belle and the Dames, and, you know, we always are, you know, talking to them about stuff. And, you know, it's to me personally, it's always just been, I personally don't care. I mean, if you have a good attitude, you can game with us all you want. It's kind of always been the approach that we take. And I know that's, you know, sadly a very, very uncommon approach, but I remember reading an article, I think it was last year, I was reading an article about how it's always actually been, like, the argument that they were making was it's always actually been like 50-50. It's just that the female portion always had this unspoken understanding that their views sadly didn't matter.
That would make sense.
And so they never spoke up. Right. And so like the numbers have always been skewed. So it's always appeared that it's 80-20, but it's actually more 50-50. And, you know, in some cases, especially with our generations and stuff like that, you know, it's actually almost even more heavily, especially if you know, depending on what video games you consider to be video games and stuff like that. It's actually more predominantly female than male. Especially, like, I think this article was saying if you consider all games, which include mobile games and what was it? I think it was handheld games, like, you know, Game Boys and, you know, your mobile phones and your tablets and your Candy Crush, you know, which some gamers will you know, turn up their nose at that, but it's technically considered a game. If you consider all those, you know, in the broad scope of quote unquote video games, it's actually predominantly female population as opposed to the more common when people talk about video games, they tend to be like, no, we're just going to talk about first person shooters or, whatever. And that always does, just by the nature of the game, it does kind of tend to be more, I hesitate to say masculine, but it tends to appeal more to a male crowd just because of the inherent nature of those games. So if you only measure that segment, of course your numbers are going to be skewed. So it's, but yeah, it's definitely, people are becoming, I would 100% agree that people are becoming more vocal about, which is awesome because it's bringing, more people into the community to discuss things and to, just have fun. And I think that's what's really cool about what you were saying about, the quote, successful cosplay is not something that is super fancy or super expensive. It's, did you have fun? Then you succeeded.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think what you actually, but social media.
Yeah. So what ways of social? sorry. We got kind of a.
No, it's fine. Because I would totally tree branch on this.
Oh
for
yeah,
hours.
It's a dangerous. It's a dangerous tree branch to go out onto. But I think coming from Focus Fire, our community has been very thankfully a very inviting community, and the clan that I was with prior, and that's always been, we've always focused on if you can come to the table and have a discussion maturely, it doesn't matter what you are. You can be a purple spaghetti monster for all I care. If you can treat people with respect, you could be Xur.
Yeah.
You could have tentacles on your face. If you can treat people with respect, you're welcome.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Xur's a bad example because he thinks that. Yeah. Anyway, stop distracting me with lore conversation. but I mean, and so
from a female's perspective, because I have definitely have had. When I used to play Halo and other first-person shooters, I had to mute myself because if they hear I'm a girl, or if I wore pink. I remember when I love pink, obviously. If I wore pink armor on my Halo character, I was a target. They knew, especially with a name like WindoftheStars or whatever. Something girls are going to choose. Generally, are going to choose names that they like, and they tend to be obviously kind of girly sometimes, and I felt like a target. And I've had so many times, guys, I'd be wearing, especially, I happens a lot more in video games. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I don't have this really happen with anime or too much of comic books, but always with video games, guys always try to fact check me, especially if I'm wearing something like with Borderlands and stuff. I happen a lot with Borderlands, trying to see how much I actually know about Borderlands. And then I start asking them questions and they don't know the answer.
Right.
And then it gets really awkward.
Yeah. And I've gotten pulled into a conversation with that, and I don't get that. I literally, and this is obviously a complete tangent off of cosplay, but I guess it does tie into the cosplay because there's a whole culture that, the booth babes term.
Well,
and that is, there are legitimate situations in which that is the case. I get that. But at the same time, if you're not all cosplayers, it's like a rectangle is a square, but not all squares are rectangles type situation. In my mind, it's like there are, and I hesitate to use that term because it feels derogatory, but there are booth babes. That is a facet of the business model that it does work, for exactly what you were saying earlier about the aesthetics of the attractiveness and all that. But but at the same time, to treat every single female who cosplays, or every single male, anybody who cosplays, to treat anybody who cosplays as if they were, a fake nerd, air quotes, or whatever, a fake whatever fan. I'm probably preaching here a little bit, but it's disrespectful.
It is.
It's extremely arrogant on the part of the person who's projecting that.
Honestly, I'm extremely tired of being treated like eye candy around here. I mean, it's not my fault. Okay. What?
But it's
I don't know. Are you a fake gamer boy? Like, let's be real.
I'm a booth boy.
Yeah.
I'm a booth boy.
Oh God. I mean, this always gets to be a tough subject because there has been instances where there has been mostly female, which is unfortunate, where they see like, hey, if I dress sexy and I look, I have a nice body and I'm confident in myself, and I say that I've been a gamer my whole entire life, because you got to, I think most of us that, who are in our early 30s or late 20s kind of experience like, oh, if you like video games or comics and anime, you're really weird. Like now it's a much more socially acceptable thing to be into those things. But I know when I was growing up, like people looked at me weird, especially being a girl, when you're supposed to like, oh, you're supposed to like hair and like boys and like Teen Vogue. Like, no, I don't like those things. Like, sorry guys.
Teen Vogue sucks.
That was a Cosmo girl. What are you talking about? No, but like, and they see an opportunity. Like, I love Jessica Negro on my heart, but she definitely had, I feel, really opened. I mean, her and Yaya, I think, really opened the floodgate for seeing people going like, hey, being attractive, pointing out, being a huge force in the geek community. Like, I love games and stuff like that. And I know Jess does. Jess is an amazing person. And I like Yaya. Yaya is a great person too. But some people have seen what they have done and like, oh, I can do it. I can fake it. Like, I can totally pretend. And unfortunately, these one or two people that have done this, that have been called out in the community now, since they've done this, they now are kind of, everyone's like, a lot of people are on edge and kind of questioning anyone else. Like, well, are you trying to do that? Are you trying to be fake? Like, no one knows who's real and who's not real. And I think there's been like this mentality of that, since we've been so outcast for so long, that there's been like, now there's this gatekeeper type of mentality. Like, well, you didn't let us in and now we're not going to let you in type of thing, which needs to be totally get rid of. Like, there needs not be a gatekeeping mentality on fandoms. Like, if someone likes it, like, I always get nervous about the Star Wars fandom because I like the movies. I mean, I've read some of the stuff behind it. I've, dabbled in some of like the books.
You're treading on thin ice. But okay, continue.
Right. Yeah, so like, exactly.
This is where I am, Blue. Be quiet.
Yeah, so like I haven't, I've played some of the games. I've watched a little bit of the animated series, but I haven't watched all the animated series. I haven't read all the novels. I haven't, I don't do that. And so if I found a character that I like and I wear that costume, I automatically get nervous that someone's going to test my knowledge and be kind of like, oh, well, you don't know what this person said on this page in this chapter of this book in the extended universe. And I'm like, I don't know that, So like, and then it kind of gets like this, like, oh, well then now, since you didn't pass my gatekeeper question here, you are now deemed fake person, because we've seen all these other girls or guys do the same thing to try to get ahead and make money off of us. We don't even make money off of what we do. You know what I'm trying to say?
You're right. No, it's exactly. And I mean, it's not just cosplay. I mean, stream. We just had this conversation with Bife about his, like, when he launched his Patreon to help support his artists. Like, he's not even, he kind of had the same conversation. He was like, it's not even for me. It's literally to give to the artist. Like, that's what it's for. And he still got grief for it. Yeah. I mean, he still got a ton of grief. I had to have a
sit down with one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was...
I got flack for starting a Patreon too, and I debated on it for a really long time.
No one should have flack for starting a Patreon though, because you're not forcing it on anybody.
Well, and that's right. That's always been my argument. It's like, no one is holding a gun to anyone's head telling you that you have to pay.
I think
people.
I think with a lot of people view, and it's just, I feel like there's also this other weird layer in the cosplay community, which needs to stop, guys. Just stop it. That cosplay needs to be a hobby and always remain a hobby, and it can't change and grow and become an industry. And I'm like, why? Like, why does it matter if it changes? Like, what? I mean, now that it's becoming a quote unquote industry, look at all this cool stuff we have. Like, you can go down to Joann's and you can buy a pattern specifically for Wonder Woman now. You couldn't do that not even 2 years ago. Well, I'm just like, I don't understand this mentality that if any person, I see a lot more in the cosplay community because that's where I mostly am, and seeing that someone who wants to try to not take advantage, but like, hey, I have a skill set, I have knowledge, I want to sell that information, and so other people can better what they're doing. But they're like, oh, as soon as you start selling your type of information or your craft or your trade, you're immediately now betraying everyone because they only see it as a hobby. And how dare you turn a hobby into something where you make money off of? And I don't get it.
Well, and I've always attributed it. I've always called it the starving artist syndrome, because it seems like, and Justin, I'll let you. I know you had something, but I just wanted to throw this out here because this is actually a conversation I've had with a number of people in streaming, because there's the same thing in streaming and YouTube. The instant that money is introduced, people in the it's technically entertainment. It's an entertainment industry. That's what it is. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. It's entertainment, and it is an industry. So anyone who's refusing to acknowledge that, you're just, your head's in the sand. But it seems like, for some odd reason, the instant that someone, and you hit the nail on the head for my mind, is as soon as someone's like, you know what, I have a skill that's marketable. I want to make money off this because guess what? I have to eat. I have to feed people. I have a life that I need to live. I have equipment that I need to buy to do this hobby that I like doing. But I mean, as soon as money is entered into it, things just go sideways for people who are viewing it. And it's a weird phenomenon because people who are extremely talented, in my mind, have a skill. And I don't see any problem in someone who has a skill marketing that. Now, there are gray lines, we can go into morality all we want, and there are morals, business and personal, that, we could disagree and agree and, have that hashed out to the nth degree. But the basic premise of that is that's consumerism. If I have a skill, you're marketing it regardless of if you're getting paid or not. Because if you think about it, any attention that you get is a form of payment. When you market it on social media, that is networking. Networking is a marketing ability. If you grow an interest in you, in YouTube and Instagram and all these other sites have actually kind of ingeniously given a way for content creators to make money without really making people aware, the ads on YouTube. If you pull up a YouTube video and there's an ad playing, that content creator, if they've monetized that, which most of the time if there's an ad playing they're getting a little bit of a kickback. Now, it's not a significant amount like a Patreon, but it's like, why does it suddenly become a moral issue? And this is a rhetorical question that I've always had is, why is, if I look at product 1 and it's the exact same product as product 2, but product 1 is quote free, and product 2 has an artist who has a Patreon on the side, why does that instantly make product 1 better? And I don't have the answer to that because it's just a weird fun. Because to me, they're the same thing. It's just one is actually being more honest in my mind. The one who's saying, "Hey, this takes time and money to put together, and if you like it and you want more of it, could you help?" Like, I mean, I don't know. Justin, save me from going down further this tangent road that I'm on.
Save you, I will, from this tangent road you are on.
Yeah,
That was an awesome sentence.
that was an awesome sentence. Yeah, I really don't get it. And the only reason I debate upon specifically Patreon is because there's so much negative backlash. And the more I thought about it, it's like, well, I'm not forcing. If someone wants to help wants to support my craft and wants to support my art, great. That allows me to be able to put out more streams. Like recently, the reason I've been able to stream is because of people's generosity and helping support what I do. I want to be able to stream if that wasn't available, and people have been coming into the stream and really enjoying it, and now I'm going to start doing a whole entire YouTube series and stuff like that. And people keep asking for all this different content, and as much as I would love to give it all for free, unfortunately I do have a mortgage to pay for. Yep. I do have a car to pay for and all that stuff. And if there's a point to where either I need to stop giving all this content and start charging a little bit to some people who want to, participate in that. I'm not forcing you, or I just stop altogether, and if I have the opportunity in my life to pursue something I'm extremely passionate about, I get to be creative and artistic, and people are willing to help make that dream a reality for me, then why not? I hope to get to a point where I can return the favor on so many other artists and creators and crafters and streamers and whatever it be, and be able to go in there and hey, you know what? I love your stream. Here's $50 today. If I hope, not if, I'm going to say when, because I'm going to be a positive thinker right now. When I get to that point, I want to be able to return. And I think, being able to share that and just help the whole community grow, because being able to do that, you're lifting up the community as a whole. Being negative and just saying, oh, poo on you for doing that. That just brings everyone down. It brings you down. It brings everyone else down. It breeds negativity, and we don't need any more negativity. Help bring everyone up. Support that artist. What does it matter to you? You can't tell other people to spend money, So, but back to the social media in general, having a social media obviously gets your name out there more. People see your work a lot more. Me being as lucky as I have been with social media and growing it to where I have gotten it, I've actually, not just conventions, I've been able to do paid gigs for companies and for other video games and stuff that approached me, and I say, hey, well, based on my numbers for social media, because social media is an industry now, people pay for influencers. It's a thing. You are a brand influencer. And I can say well, based on my numbers, this is how much it's going to cost for me to post about your company and your brand on my page, and stuff, or my page or my account or social media. And that's just another revenue stream for me, so it's on the bad side of social media. We've kind of a little bit touched on it, but on the social media, of course, there's always going to be trolls. There's trolls everywhere, there's always going to be people who are going to poo-poo on you because, I cannot go into how many awful names I have been called under the sun on social media.
Who did it?
I don't know. I try to go.
I think you do. I can hear it. I can hear your voice. We'll talk post show.
A few years ago, there was a bad incident with 4chan that I almost stopped cosplaying altogether, because it was people that I knew, but it was just, but I think it's more greed and jealousy that, that at least in my mind, that's how I have to rationalize it, because I'm I can't imagine anyone being this visceral every day. Why would you want to be this awful of a person every day? And I just have to justify in my mind, well, maybe they're just in a really bad place and they wish they could do this, and they're just not happy with either how they look or what they are doing in their life or whatever the reason may be. And so they have to lash out at me, so it sucks, But at the same time, as much as I wish the world was full of sunshines and rainbow, that's just the nature of being. I hate to say I'm a public figure because I don't like to see it that way.
No,
but like
once
just
you've topped
out there.
Once you've topped 1,000 Twitter followers, you're a public figure. I'm sorry,
I guess. You're there. It's just. I think it's just the nature of the beast being out there at such a level, being so exposed, and you just, a lot of it, you just got it. You build a dragon's skin, unfortunately, you just kind of have to start letting stuff not bother you. And for me, like I mentioned, that 4chan incident, I don't go to those sites anymore. Any site that is just a breeding ground for hate or like, oh, this person did this. Nope, not doing it. Don't read the comments on random stuff like Kotaku.
Rule 1 of the internet. Don't read the comments.
Don't read the comments. I read the comments on my social media pages, Instagram and stuff, and I will police it. Like if someone starts being really mean to me or to someone that is in my photo, I go, this is now actually I've gotten to a no warning policy. I just kind of said, like, if you're going to be a dick, you're out. I'm sorry. You're done. Bye. So, and I've had a lot of people come to me and ask me, like, how do you deal with all, people saying bad things about you on a continual basis? And unfortunately, the way I don't have a specific answer, but what has worked for me is just kind of almost put blinders on to a degree. Focus on your communities, like your Twitch community, your Patreon community, your own Facebook community, the areas that you have grown, like those are your safe spaces for putting yourself out there on the internet. Don't go to those other places. Don't read the comments, because that's just like going down the back street alley of that really bad part of town that you probably shouldn't go down, but you're really curious. Like, don't do it. Like, it's a bad idea. And just focus on what it is you love. Like, if it's creating costumes, focus on that. Put all your energy and everything into that, and don't, like, just because people call me, I get called fat and overweight all the time on the internet, and now I just kind of oh yeah, I get called thick version all the time, like the diva. I get called thick diva like continually.
I need names.
But I mean, of course, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it does bother me. Sometimes I go, "Oh man, I shouldn't have eaten that McDonald's, or I shouldn't have drinking that." But I try to really hard to focus. Like, just keep focus on your craft. People are gonna like you for what you do, and if they don't like you, fine. Then they don't like you. You can't please everyone, and that is such a hard skill and mentality to adopt, that even after so many years, I still have a hard time going, just focusing on stuff, so, but
when someone's life is so toxic that they feel the need to spread it to the little corners that the tendrils of their little cancerous existence touches on a daily basis, then you just can't stop them. I mean, haters gonna hate, right, T Swift? That's what I'm talking about. It's just that's I mean, that's all. Like, literally, you do you. I mean, that's all. I can't believe people say mean things to you. You're so awesome.
I don't know. They do. I mean, I don't know. People. I don't know.
People say mean things to me, but I suck.
Don't suck. You might blow a little bit, but
Oh, that's rough. So right here, from within the podcast, the call came from within. It's inside the house. That's what happened.
No, that's a love. That's a term of endearment, Justin. Trust me.
Okay, so I've actually got one more question.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a doozy, and I want to get off. We got a little bit too real. It got real talk, and I don't like where this conversation went. It got
too real too quick.
Yeah, it got too real. It was like an episode of Oprah where she was talking about like really lighthearted stuff, and all of a sudden, just boom, she's gonna talk serious. I don't like that.
So does that mean,
Oprah.
are we at the part where she goes, and you get a prize, and you get a prize, and you get a prize? Are we at that part
Yes.
now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're back to that part. We were
Great.
on like the part where she just goes pedophiles, and then she like talks about that. But now we're back on she's giving away stuff.
Yes.
She's giving away Bed Bath and Beyonds, and
All
she's
right.
like,
Mama needs a new debate cover. Let's go.
Stuff. Yeah. If so, this is like a complete. This is a complete hypothetical, and I want you to think outside the box on this one. If money and time weren't a consideration, and we're talking perfect world, perfect resources, what's the cosplay that you would most like to try? Like the one that you always kind of think about would be perfect, but God, that's an undertaking that
Mass
you
Effect
would
3
do
armor.
if you had a genie.
She didn't even have to think.
What'd she say?
Mass Effect 3 armor.
Oh, that would be good.
Let me explain. Why. So in my perfect realm of perfectness, not only would I want to make the armor with actual, like, sculpt it, mold it, cast it in actual carbon fiber, like it is in the game. right, and have it all lit up, actually make the Omniblade like I've seen people do it. I have no idea how to do it, but I've seen it done, where they take the acrylic and they're able to etch it and then edge light it so it actually looks like an Omniblade.
Oh yeah,
like,
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's
insane.
And the creme de la creme, that I actually work out so I'm buff like Commander Shepard. That is my plan. It will not happen, but it is my plan.
I've seen your Shepard. You're pretty strong Shepard. Okay.
I'll give you the face game, but I'm talking like I want to be able to just drop and give like 50 push-ups at a drop of a hat. I want to be able to run 9 miles and not fret. I want abs of steel. I want those Reapers to see my abs and go home crying.
Nice.
In my mind, that's what Commander Shepard would have. In my mind. I don't know if that's what she would actually have. So, but in my mind, that's my vision of Commander Shepard.
Nice. Just lots of crunches.
Lots of crunches. Yes. I love Mass Effect. I adore Mass Effect so much. Like it is up there. So they're up in the top tier of Mel Land's awesome video games of awesome games of all time of awesomeness. We have
Nice.
we have Borderlands, we have Destiny, and we have Mass Effect. Like those up there are the ones. Yes. Mass Effect hit me in the feels. I had emotional problems for at least a week, where I would just start thinking about things and like, see, I'm getting like upset thinking about it right now. I just like I can't. That was an emotional experience. That was an emotional part of my time in my life when I played Mass Effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, but yes, Mass Effect 3 armor. However, now that Andromeda is coming out next year, cross fingers that they're actually going to keep to it, that might change. I might see that Andromeda armor in like full regal and just be like, yes, that right there.
That is the one.
But I don't think anything could ever top Shepard in a video game. Like the character Shepard and that experience that you have playing as your Shepard, however way you decided to play, like that is such, like you literally, I don't know how they did it, but it literally felt like that was my experience in my game. Like that, I can't even articulate. Look, I have no words. I can't speak. So,
Nice.
But yes.
Well, yeah. I hope that dream comes true for you.
Maybe the armor part I don't know about Abs of Steel scaring away Reapers, but I can dream, right?
Oh, that's whatever you put your mind to, it's possible.
Justin, let's be honest. I really like cheeseburgers and French fries, and I really like Dr. Pepper, and I really like sitting on my couch and playing video games. So
I'm with you on all of that.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be pretty crazy to like go from that to like gym rat status. I don't think that'll happen.
Well, squad goals. We can maybe get like a team workout goals thing. If I do 100 sit-ups, then Blue's got to do some push-ups, and then he hands the baton over.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
Squad goals. Are we talking about throwing in a Rex and a Garrus into this? Because then I might die. I literally might die. Like if I cosplayed Shepard and I had a on point Rex and Garrus, I probably would like emotionally break down because I would be so happy.
Well, that would be kind of out of character, but okay.
It would be behind the scenes. It would be one of those moments where like she's having a moment with Garrus and they just got done doing what they do, and there's the emotional moment. That would happen. Garrus is my space boyfriend. Don't judge me.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm cool with that. I can accept that. So, Blue, you got anything else?
No, I mean that really actually covered most of what we had. I mean, I think we hit pretty much everything. So, well, at least everything that we had as far as questions from chat and the general theme of where they wanted. I think we had a couple random tangents in there that were good though.
They were relevant.
I think they were, or at least they appeared to be at the time. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to still say they're relevant.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to go with that.
Positive thinking.
Positive thinking.
Yes.
So, Justin, we good to go to shout-outs?
Yeah. Let's rock it.
Let's let Mel take the seat, the conch first.
Oh man, you're making me do this first?
I don't like that you put it that way. It bothers me.
Says the man who invented it. Or started.
I guess the first thing I want to say is words. No, the first thing thank you guys. Every time you guys have me on the show, I am very honored that you guys let me into your nice little lore chat community thing and being able to do other stuff. I love talking to you guys and chatting about cosplay or Overwatch or Destiny, especially Destiny. So being able to be on the chat show podcast thingamajiggy here is a lot of fun, and I really appreciate being on it. Normal stuff for those who are listening to this and don't know my work and want to check me out. I go by the handle WindoftheStars. I'm sure Blue would be really awesome and put a link to something on there, but you can pretty much Google that.
All the links.
So I'll be on all the links on the thing. But you can also Google and you can find me. So if you guys are interested about learning how to do crafting stuff, I have an awesome Patreon that has a lot of information. I'm starting a new YouTube thing soon. And then, of course, my website has a bunch of free tutorials on how to do stuff too. So, yeah. And then if you make costumes, please share them with me because I love seeing your guys' creations. But yeah, and I hope to see some of you guys at a show someday and come say hi and we can geek out about Destiny.
Nice. Blue, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to give a big shout out to the actual chat because, as usual, we derive everything that we talk about from the chat. Like everything that we've discussed came from a number of people, the ones that are very prominently in my mind, and forgive me if I misremember anybody here, is Rhino666, Reverend Cook, Green-Eyed Music Lover, Coed Beast, and Silver Loki. for this episode alone, those were the primary contributors of questions. And, we do the same thing with our normal weekly podcast. Those are recaps of the chat that we have. And what that means is without that community and without that chat, we would probably be able to put something together, but it really is based off you guys. And so I think that, again, shout out to you guys. That is the entire, that's what makes this entire experiment of ours, if you would, so much fun, is watching what ideas we come up with in our spinfoil lounge and what annoyingly head desk worthy theory Pan is going to be involved with next. So thank you. Justin, you get the thing that you don't want me to say.
Yeah, no, I really would like to thank Mel for being on again. I think it's awesome to have her on every single time, but even more special to hear her get to talk about what she does, which I think is amazing. For me, it's cosplay has always been kind of like a fringe element I hadn't known a lot about. But social media has really changed it to where actually I get to see now. I get tweets of people cosplaying my favorite characters from video games and movies. And it's very much become one of the things I look forward to most when I'm actually kind of searching through social media. So thank you so much, Mel. And also Charmy Sweets. I hope you feel better. And sorry you couldn't make it on.
Yeah, that is...
And double. Actually, Mel, just so we all know, how do we find Charmy?
She goes by Charmy Sweets is her handle. Pretty much everything. I can. I'll send Blues the information so they can find Sarah as well. Her name's Sarah, but she goes by Charmy.
I think
so, she's really cool. I
think she's in the chat too, in our Discord chat.
I think so. I think so. I think we pulled her in. But she's really cool because a lot of, I'm sure maybe some of you guys are familiar with DPD's videos. Like he's the Deadpool that goes around and does a lot of the videos. The videos where they're songs and they're like cosplay songs, like the words have changed. She's actually the one singing those songs. So
cool.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. I like her.
Yeah, I hope you feel better, Charmy. And I'd also like to give a big shout out to everyone who's kind of braved my live streams the last couple weeks. I've had a lot of technical issues, and I've had some great people stuck around and try to help me with them. Hurt Chain, Pins Halo, Dr. Nimbus. I can't think of everybody, but Alt.
Blue.
Kashin, thank you. Blue. God. Blue. Wow. You're the kind of guy who buys his own Father's Day present, aren't you? Just couldn't wait for me to say it.
Sorry, couldn't help myself on that one.
No, and yeah. So anyways, just so you all know and you're not all scared away, I think I may have fixed the echo. We'll see Friday. And then my last shout out is to haters. I don't know who you are.
Oh, no.
I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you leave Mel alone now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you. I won't really kill you. So I will just flame you. I'll post really aggressive emojis.
Hey, aggressive emojis can be pretty damaging to your soul.
Oh man, they cut like a knife.
Yeah. They do. A hot one. That's dull.
So, the moral to that story is Don't be a Richard. Okay, Blue.
Oh my God. Well, with that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Links to all our sites can also be found with our episode archives over on www.focusfirechat.com. Thank you again to Mel for spending your evening with us to talk about cosplaying. We really appreciate the just the awesome, candid discussion about everything that goes on, behind the scenes of that avenue. So thank you very much for spending that time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me again. Thank you.
And please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any feedback or questions concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback on iTunes or through email as well. Also, be sure to check out our partner podcast within the Guardian Radio Network over on the guardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.